Oh hey, didn't see you there. Quick, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Japan? Okay, but what else? Yes, you're getting closer. Close enough.
We're gonna have a little lesson in anime, so I hope you're ready. The test is gonna be especially unimportant.
It's like high school all over again.
Dictionaries. Fuck 'em. The only vocabulary words you're gonna need are the ones kept in your heart. Like arrhythmia. What's arrhythmia?
I don't know, I can't find definition anywhere.
Alright, so if you're gonna be a part of anime culture, there are some terms that you should get a grasp on. Only a few.
Which is why I'm going to break down the more common terms that you'll probably find in weebdom. First off, we have fuck, where do I start?
Anime is the most bare bones you can get with this index. It's animated Japanese cartoons. Because why watch Avatar when you can watch Fuka?
You don't understand. I need more disappointing steps in my fiction to project on my own life.
The definition of anime gets muddied as time passes on, and those debates from previous years really peaked in times of Avatar, Ruby, and Shelter, but generally, when I say anime, people already get the gist of what I'm talking about. Movies, OVAs, shorts, if it's animated in a Japanese style or gives off a certain Japanese aura, it's anime.
Along with anime, there's mangas and light novels, which are often the source material for a mini anime. And then there's
Yeah, that tracks. Light novels are small serializations of ongoing stories published in increments or chapters and are usually easy to pick up, tricky to keep up with tales of intrigue or a new twist on an established trope. There's little visual flair, being practically 95% dependent on reader imagination, but with that are often very detailed and flowing in narrative and character perception.
and because of how the market operates, you'll usually see a lot of light novels with ridiculously long titles that will normally just summarize the whole concept for you. So that you can just go ahead and read them and wonder, what the fuck?
Manga. Similar to light novels in that they are text-based and something you can grab.
Don't make me face reality like that.
The big difference is that they come in comic form. You read from right to left, look at the pretty visuals, and get your fulfillment that way. So no more using that useless imagination thing. You can finally cook recipes without the need of words.
Light novels and manga are, in my opinion, the next step in weebdom. While it's so easy to sit down and watch anime, with light novels and manga, while simple, can take a lot of time and resources. Anime is just so easily consumable as media in this modern day, while the stories themselves have to support the industry from the shadows. If the serializations don't see any sales, then the chances for adaptations dwindle. It's a flawed system, but it's a flawed system that works.
But if fans are dedicated enough, or a story slowly starts to get a following, then it wouldn't be impossible for it to reach greater heights. One of the most famous anime right now is just that. And there is hope for even older stories too, as more and more people fall into this hobby. People called. Alright, so let's talk about war.
My favorite.
When it comes to anime, there are three clans. The normies, the otaku, and the weebs. Now if you call yourself an otaku, you're likely someone who's trying to walk that thin line between maintaining a healthy social life and finding more enjoyment in your less than acceptable hobbies. If that's the case,
There is no escape.
look, there's no problem with what you call yourself. At the end of the day, we're all degenerates. But for clarification's sake, an otaku is someone who's a dedicated hobbyist. It can be video games, comics, model building, lobotomy, and of course, anime. Now a weeb, or a weeaboo, is someone who specifically dabbles in Japanese culture, usually through its media and merchandise. What level are you?
I'm a level 5, but some days are a level 2 day.
Weebs are a different breed of fandom. They can be incredibly endearing in how obsessed they are about their favorite character or their favorite show, while also being incredibly toxic. I swear, if Japan manages to make clothes hangers the next Evangelion, you can bet weebs will go to R34 faster than Pokemon enthusiasts when a new waifu's dropped. Doujinshi, or Doujin. These are fan-made, independently published works by anime fans who want to showcase their love in physical form. These can be parody works or be completely original stories, and Even more notably, you get to play Is This Hentai Roulette each time you open one. And of course, with the status of weeb comes the territory of learning Japanese. These are terms you'll often hear in anime, and you'll quickly associate them with a loose English translation with little regard to how they actually operate in real Japanese. Want to disappoint your parents?
You're already on the right track watching this tutorial.
Whip out your Japanese!
Sumimasen, my good son. Do you have some sugoi ramen I can itadakimasu desu? Get out of my house! But not me about my ramen! This is a KFC!
For the love of God, don't learn your Japanese from anime. You'd be better off going to Bing Translate. If only there is some sort of easy to understand book that would define a multitude of words and phrases for convenience.
Well, now that we got the general terms out of the way, what's our next topic?
Every so often, you'll hear terms like moe and ecchi. If you hear those words, always be sure you're carrying. Anime is distinctive in its own style. The evolution of it has changed significantly from the 1910s to today's era, and by now it's really easy to identify anime from the general common techniques. Wide eyes and exaggerated expressions, big and bombastic animation sequences, and an understanding of basic human proportions, and throwing that understanding out the 13th floor of a Detroit apartment building. You can classify styles into 4 categories. Standard, the basic everyday form you're familiar with. Realistic, the style closer to human proportions and expressions. Non-traditional, for those shows whose styles take from other inspirations. And chibi, where eldritch horror is a petting zoo. And it's not uncommon for these different styles to adapt to animation draws that keep the industry's identity. Standard shows won't shy away from the moe market, and even realistic shows will dip their toes into fan service every so often to change up the pacing or the mood.
And of course, there's 3D.
That's the reaction you often see when you mention 3D, and to be fair, that one's not gonna be holy forever. But to say all 3D in anime is bad, it's like saying Hollow's not worth it.
It's simply not true.
The ire against 3D in that all 3D anime is trash stems from the fact that a lot of it looks like baby's first blender. Not that one. There you go. And while I can understand a good handful of those arguments, not only has there been some phenomenal 3D shows out there, but there's been a ton of modern 3D realizing scenes that just blend in perfectly in just as many cases.
And those are about the basics of animation terminology. Being able to get the style down pat is a must, and being able to identify it instantly is another step in down to 7 isekai levels. Speaking of
anime genres, you have the very basics from romance, sci-fi, action, comedy, nothing all too overwhelming. It's when you get into the specialized genres where you have to watch out.
Do you know you can't just find any movie with substitution? I guess there are worse offenses against the kindergarten Sunday school.
Anime's staple genres are those you will instantly think of when you hear the word. Giant robots and mecha, singing and dancing girls and idol, chill and cozy atmospheres and slice of life. These are Japanese certified genres that the industry wouldn't be the same without. They've shaped the cultural landscape of how big, dazzling, and down-to-earth the style can get. Even with the most basic genres like adventure or romance, shows try to spread their creative wings out to see what really sticks, and it shows in the subgenres that come to being as a result, like isekai or the it's totally cool to harass a guy you show a little iota of liking because the fuck's he gotta do about it? Show.
Great to see that all ages can benefit from this.
Anime genres over the years have evolved to be some of the most distinguishable story structures in the industry. They really do act as a blueprint and have a variable way of customizing the individual shows and manga when they see what sticks and grabs people's attention.
And it's not just the shows that operate like this. You'll see this down to the tropes and even the pliable nature of the industry as it moves on to the next big thing. This includes
You've got the shonen protagonists, the hikikomori, the lolis, the genkis, the gyarus, the omotos, the onesans. When it comes to characters, anime's tropes are the top of tiers of recycled cliches. You'll come across a lot of different types of characters in anime, where they either come off a preceded personality type or even revolutionize or begin a new one.
Take the degenerate type of characters, for example. Characters well defined by a polarizingly cute side, offset by how they normally act 80% of the time. Now, doctors call that bipolar, but I know how statistics work. Where's my doctorate?
A good handful of characters are depicted by a certain ideology or stereotype. This can come from what the story needs, their character designs, or the latent societal outlook on how the media portrays them. Tsunderes are mean and hateful but sweet on the inside. Yakuza are tough and hard-boiled and stylish to a fault. Isekai MCs are self-inserts, it goes on.
It's here where you have to be aware of why character tropes exist. Money. While it's true that a good story will get an audience, it's the heroes and villains that will lead us through those stories that will eventually keep that audience.
This is why in so much merchandising that in order to understand why a certain type of character is utilized, look at who stands on top. And more importantly, who's making those calls. Anime is a business, much like music, movies, and video games. You can't have an industry without profits. Publishers and studios are always making note of what's sticking and what's good. They can promote and cancel a number of projects based on the reception and public interest whenever there's money on the line. In doing so, you can gauge a good deal of how projects are handled by various studios.
And while there are questionable practices in the industry ranging from accusations of plagiarism to troubles with labor wages, addressing how the industry does this is the first step in educating ourselves and how to better it, and could be a completely different topic covered for another day. Now let's talk about fan service.
Once you're in this hobby, you're gonna hear a lot of terms that you're gonna have to go to Urban Dictionary for.
No.
Fan service being one of them, referring to the visual focus on a specific moment to gauge audience love and attention. Now, in anime, this is often tied to scenes of the ecchi nature, but that's not always the case. It can be a great moment in a fight or a serene part of just taking in the environment. But yeah, a lot of it is pretty sexual. The most common term is waifu, a female character whom a fan holds dear to them.
That's the PG version of it, yeah.
This and the male equivalent, husbando, aren't really inherently wrong as long as you can differentiate a fictional idea of a person and reality. Because, man, people get real passionate about it.
Not me, though.
But Nathan, you ask, what if my waifu is superior to my friend's waifu?
Imagine having friends.
Well, that's what we call a waifu war, a best girl debacle. Essentially, these are discussions about why girl A is better than girls B, C, and D in every aspect except we're exploitable.
That's the PG version of it. Probably.
And like with waifus, it shouldn't be a problem as long as debates are civil and all parties don't take others' opinions as personal attacks. In addition to choosing the right best girl, there's also the issue of choosing how to watch. Subtitled or dubbed over. Not all anime are localized in different languages other than Japanese, and there are claims that those that aren't up to par with their native tongue.
The sub versus dub debate has been around ever since the first dubbed anime has existed. Now, I don't have strong feelings one way or another regarding the argument, but I think we can all agree that SAO Abridged is still better than the original series.
Abridged series. Fan-made edits of entire series that abridge over the story, often in comedic effect and unprofessional voiceover. These are either made by people who love the respective parodies or loathe them, and are made with passion and love of the craft.
My wife is dead, the world is coming to an end, and to top it off I have a spineless pussy son with a bigger vagina than Justin Bieber who is so useless he's incapable of even thinking for himself!
Was that an insult?
No, it was a compliment!
Thank you.
Speaking of, there's other anime-inspired media as well. Shows, merchandise, AMVs, OVAs, and even entire careers made on the idea of showing the love behind the art style. At the end of the day, it's actually kind of amazing that this hobby happens to also revolve around life itself. Not just as a business with a model, but as a pure love of what it can do for us, helping people realize dreams, learn of new experiences, and take time in sharing their passions on the larger landscape as it expands to viewers like you and me. From basic terminology to the more complex lingo of the anime community, how we communicate and convey the technical and emotional impact this art leaves on us formulates the hobby as a whole into its own cohesive world of wonder, intrigue, storytelling, and of course, fan service. A whole different isekai for all of us to get wrapped up in.
And that's the basic gist of the ABCs of anime, albeit a very basic comprehension of what makes up this hobby's quirks and ideas. Now, even though it is a bit to take in, it's still really cool that this hobby incorporates a lot of technical and made-up terminology to all come together in this culmination of weird but culturally fascinated storytelling and driven ideas. It's really cool and fascinating like that. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a test to take. Question 1. Does 50% equal 80%? No. Question 2. What is arrhythmia? Fuck!